canciller.
Muy buenos días para todos y para todas.
Good morning, everyone. We are greeting you from the Agra in the city of Bogota, here together to open the first World Ministerial Conference to combat violence against childhood. It's being led by the government of Gustavo Petro in order to accelerate the implementation of the goal 16.2, part of the SDGs of the United Nations, based on ending mistreatment, torture, trafficking against children. We appreciate all the people connecting in the social media and the webpage of the Presidency of the Republic, and all the people who have joined us today. Without further ado, to start the Ministry Conference, participating 1,400 delegates. We will give the floor to the Ministry of Foreign Relations, Luis Gilberto Murillo. Welcome.
Señor canciller.
Mr. Chancellor, welcome to this encounter. We invite you to take the floor. Welcome. I was going to be sitting. Thank you very much. We welcome you to this first Ministerial World Conference to end the violence against childhood. We welcome you on behalf of the President, Gustavo Petro, and the Vice President, Francia Marquez, leading the government of change. Vice President of the Republic of Colombia, Minister of Equality, Your Excellence Francia Marquez Mina, Your Excellence Camila Watterson Rombold, Minister of Social Services of Sweden. Thank you for this partnership in order to start this important first conference in a global context. Your Excellence Nayat Maala Majid, Special Representative of the Secretary General of the United Nations on Violence Against Children, Ms. Laura Sarabia Torres, Director of the Administrative Department of the Presidency, Your Excellencies, Ministry of Government and delegations present, Iris Marin, People's Defender, Your Honor Congressman, Mr. Jaramillo, Minister of Health, and ministers that joined us from the national government, Astrid Cáceres Cárdenas, General Director of the Colombia Institute of Family Welfare, Director General of the Family Welfare. We appreciate your leadership to start this conference. Jarbas Barbosa Asisa, Director of the Pan American Association, the PAHO. Paula Andrea Vázquez, General Secretary of Foreign Relations, Mr. Jorge Rojas, Vice Minister of Foreign Relations, officials of the national government, delegates of the participating countries, ministers, chiefs of delegations, diplomat bodies in Colombia, honorable ambassadors here present, communication, the media, Goodwill Ambassador Sara Diaz from the government of Colombia. Likewise, I would like to highlight the presence of children here that are part of the central topic of this conference. It's the first time that we are in the global context to speak about such an important matter, the ending violence against childhood. Today, along with Sweden, the United Nations, the different delegations, together with the multilateral bank, the academy, the civil society, and the private sector, we are receiving more than 1,400 people in this World Conference to end the violence against childhood. Currently, more than half children of the world suffer violence, more than 1,000 million cases of abuse in the world, more than 1,001 million cases. This devastating situation prevents these children from living in conditions of normality. That's why, for us as a country, it's a challenge and a privilege to facilitate discussions in order to offer solutions that the humanity must have. A week ago, we started the COP16 on diversity. We discussed on the future of diversity of life on the world, and we are speaking about the future again, focused on childhood and the relationship between these scenarios for life. Welcome to Colombia. Colombia is the country of beauty, and today we are the country where we want to take global debates and present global solutions too, coming from the peoples and the most affected people. We are honored by the agencies of the United Nations, by the civil society and the academy, and also more than 100 nations who have come here to discuss on these topics. We are honored because of the fact that we have the children, because our discussions will move around the emergency or urgency to look for solutions for the youth and children. That's part of the task that we have as a global community, to comply with the Sustainable Development Goals, to progress in the protection of nature and life. We invite you to create a coalition for peace for nature, which we invite you to adhere within the framework of the commitment to answer to the climate and environmental challenges of desertification and all the challenges that are urgent in the world, with the challenges to inequality, poverty. And I'd like to highlight the presence of Sara Sofia Leon, our Goodwill Ambassador for the Coalition of Peace with Nature, because here in Colombia we speak about peace, not about war. We are looking for peace in all its senses, because peace must be amongst us, but with the same nature. Currently, more than half of the children of the world suffer a kind of violence. It's not only violence against nature and life, it is violence against children and their lives, girls and their lives. More than 1,000 million cases, as I mentioned. This is unacceptable. It's a situation that must change. For that, we are here. We are not an exception. In Colombia, violence against childhood is in several ways, at homes, at schools, at affected communities by the armed conflict and violence, in infant labor environment, and we add to this the digital violence and the risks that children and adolescents, migrants and displaced face, that obviously are related to our history of the armed conflict. This has left profound scars affecting generations. As childhood, as one of the victims of this suffering, be this the opportunity to confirm our condolences for the loss of Sofia Delgado Zúñiga and many other children, minors who have been victims of violence against childhood. Santi Esteban Beltrán, Susan Beltrán, Sara Sofía Galván, Ana Sofía Alzate, Juliana Zamboni, Luis Santiago Pelaño. More than 350 children killed, more than 1,800 victims of sexual harassment. And we say this upon and facing the global community because we're looking for solutions, which is a priority of the government. But in this scenario today, Colombia commits itself to build a country that is safe, where its childhood can develop with peace of mind, without fear. That's why we work tirelessly for peace and life, to protect our infants and children, is to protect our present and our future. We need a present of protection for the future to be of opportunities for each child, each girl. So it is a moment to join our voices and resources to protect our childhood, our children, and ensure a peaceful and social justice future. A safe world for children is possible. Together, we can turn that into reality. I invite you to make this conference the first of the world, a scenario of commitment and action where we guarantee human dignity, environment for each boy and girl. The bombarding and destruction of children is unacceptable. It is the maximum expression of barbarians. That's why we are against of any kind of genocide, including the genocide in Gaza. We do not want children to be killed in any country, including ours. That's why we face and we are sincere telling the problems we have, and we mentioned the children who have been victims of violence in Colombia, because together we need to tell the world that the most holy thing is to protect our childhood, for them to realize their dreams. Colombia is committed to childhood with the present, the future, their lives in dignity, and committed to peace. That's the message of our government, of President Gustavo Petro and Vice President Francia Márquez.
The
Minister of Social Services from Sweden. The floor is yours, Ms. Kamala.
Your Excellencies,
Sus Excelencias,
Representative, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is an absolute pleasure to finally stand here at this first Global Ministerial Conference on Ending Violence Against Children. I am proud that Sweden is a co-host of this conference, and it is particularly extraordinary to co-host this conference in and with Colombia this year, since our countries also celebrate 150 years of bilateral relations. Children all over the world are still suffering from violence in 2024. We have approximately 5 years until 2030, which equals 5 years to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, including Target 16.2, to end all forms of violence against children. No child should be a victim of violence. No child should be afraid to come home, to go to school, or to simply go outside. Children should be given the love and support that allows them to thrive. The children of today and the future, they are our future, the children, and it is our duty to make sure all children have memories of safety and happiness to claim their place in society confidently in the future. Sweden has a long history of working to end violence against children. Several initiatives have been taken over decades, and we have come a long way in Sweden. I wish to highlight 3 important points in our work to combat violence against children. Firstly, the introduction of the ban against corporal punishment in 1979. One of the most significant measures in Sweden for combating violence against children. Legislative measures are crucial. This ban has had an impact on how society views and handles violence against children, and it has helped changing attitudes and behaviors among parents and guardians. The ban has also laid the foundation for other important initiatives and strategies to protect children and promote their rights. Secondly, the establishment of the Children's Advocacy Centers, Barnahus. This concept has been crucial for Sweden's child protection efforts because it provides a coordinated and child-friendly environment where children who have been subjected to violence or abuse can receive support and help from various professionals in one place. This reduces the risk of the child having to repeat their story multiple times, which can be re-traumatizing. Collaboration between sectors is facilitated by working in a child advocacy center, Barnahus, improving the investigation process and ensuring that the child receives the help and protection they need. Thirdly, considered the increased violence and abuse taking place online, we adjusted the Swedish Criminal Code in 2022 to strengthen the legal protection for victims subject to violence online, including children. Violence online knows no borders, and we need to work together in this area. It is my firm belief that we can do better together, to act now for generations free from violence. This conference is a first step. First of all, we need to listen to children and young people when adopting and implementing new measures to end violence. We cannot protect children if we do not consider their voices on how we can best protect them. So where do we start? What do we need to do to protect children? Well, strengthen laws and policies. It is essential for countries to implement and enforce strong laws and policies that protect children from all forms of violence. to ensure comprehensive prohibition of all forms of violence against children and ensuring laws are effectively upheld. Then, educate and raise awareness. Raising awareness about the rights of the child and the harmful effect of violence is crucial. Raise awareness on how to recognize and respond to different signs of abuse and violence, considering children's different background, conditions, and needs. Educational programs for parents, guardians, teachers, and communities can also help changing attitudes and behaviors regarding violence against children, and support and protect vulnerable children. It is necessary to establish and strengthen systems to identify, support, and protect children who are exposed to violence and at risk of being exposed to violence. This includes access to psychological support and rehabilitation services to help children recover. I specifically wish to highlight children with disabilities, which is one group particularly vulnerable to violence. Finally, measures to protect children require collaboration across borders between governments, international organizations, and communities. That is why this conference matters, and we all must act now for generations free from violence. Thank you.
Gracias, señora ministra. Continuamos con la intervención del representante especial del secretario general de las Organizaciones de las Naciones Unidas sobre la violencia contra los niños y niñas. Ella es la señora Najat Mallah Majid. Bienvenida.
Excellencies, honorable assistants, all protocol observed, dear friends, dear children and young people. You know, I was preparing a statement, but I am going to do it in live because many things were told. Why we are here today, why this conference matters, as highlighted the Ministry of Sweden, because it's really timely. It's really an urgent matter. Because, you know, while we are discussing now, today, each minute, in many countries, children are dying, children are injured, children are fleeing, children are victims of trafficking, children are victims of various forms of violence in all settings. Why this conference matters and it's timely? Because all of us are doing plans, strategies, wonderful programs, but we are still lagging behind. We are not achieving. We made a promise, ending all forms of violence against children by 2030. The time is running. This year we are commemorating the 35th anniversary of the Convention of the Children's Rights, and we have to ask ourselves why we are not achieving. To be very frank, I am in this position since 5.5 years, and what I am seeing, violence against children become a pandemic. It's not stopping. And it is why I am really happy, not because of the situation, but because many policymakers from various backgrounds are here, various regions, to speak out of the box, to make this conference a game changer, to maximize positive change for children in every part of the world. Yes, violence is unacceptable, but we know that it's preventable. We have, you know, huge programs, evidence-based, cost-effective, you know, solution. We know that the violence against children has a huge human cost and economic cost, up to 11% of national GDP. And in some countries, it can reach, 6 times the annual expenditure of health sector. We know all that. So the question really during these 2 days, yes, you did pledges. We have many countries who are pathfinding countries. We are going to launch these pledges. We are going to launch this pathfinding initiative, Pathfinding Alliance 2.0. But the question is, really very frankly, to make sure that this conference is not an end in itself, and to make sure that children and young people are not only listened, they are heard, they are engaged, not only here, but also at country level in all decision-making process. And I really hope that at the end of this conference, all of us will translate all these commitments in concrete action. And I can promise you, as special representative on violence against children, I will provide all the support I can. I will mobilize what I can with my colleague, with the states. I think here today, please connect the dot. This is very important. We can make it. We promise to do it. We are accountable, and we are accountable first to children. Many thanks.
Hola, hola.
Thank you very much. We give the floor now to the chorus children from the peace signature among the Colombian state and the old FARC by 2016. The group is conformed by boys and girls for the music education program Vamos a la Filarmónica. Let's go to the Philharmonic. And they're sharing a commitment with a comprehensive music education. So please, a round of applause to this group of children.
Fresh out roots. If there was drama, got the ooze. Ship the whole crew to the cruise. Do a shit you won't even see in movies. Bow, bow.
Aló. Oh, perdón.
Good morning, everyone. This is a special morning. It's a morning to celebrate life, peace, hope. And this is the choir, Philharmonic Choir, Children of Peace. It belongs to the Philharmonic Orchestra of Bogota that has put their sight on the hope of the world, that is children, but in the present, because they are here and they are living part through music of what our country means, the meaning of our history, especially the meaning of what we hope for, what we have just sang. A sea of dreams. We have dreams, they have dreams. Through music, we try to change, help transform their reality and project them towards a great future. When we make music, we make a team. Each of us put something out of us for the core to sound better. So we were offering the present of our life, of our work, that what we hope for them to become great human beings, good children, good citizens. That's the purpose. So let's close with a song that has been the motto, the flag of the choir, that is the Palomita de la Paz, that is the hope of the Palomita de la Paz. But in the first verse, it tells the pain of our country, but then we finish saying we want peace. And I think all of us can sing together with the children, Quiero paz, I want peace. Thank you for receiving this present that we have brought for you today.
started when I was 13.
When I was 6 or 7.
It was my stepdad.
Our youth group leader. My cousin.
I was a child.
At no point did anyone say, It started when I was 13.
When I was 6 or 7.
It was my stepdad.
Our youth group leader. My cousin.
I was a child.
At no point did anyone say, "Are you okay? Let me help you."
It wasn't safe to go outside. Home wasn't exactly the place to be either.
He used to beat me with a phone book, and I know some people will think, well, what the hell was he using a phone book for? Well, the reason why he used a phone book, because it was heavy, and the type of bruising it would leave wouldn't be the same as being punched or kicked.
All I wanted was to learn.
Instead, they took me and trapped me with all these other girls.
And for every lascivious things that I refused to do, they would starve you. Like, literally starve you.
I couldn't tell anyone at school either.
I thought I would get into trouble.
Finally, someone spoke up.
A girl, a bit older than me. She saved us all.
But then what?
This constant fear, it never leaves you.
There is no getting over it. Only through. Only through.
Half of all children are victims of violence. Violence that damages the childhoods of today and societies of tomorrow.
We are the first generation with the knowledge and the power to ensure every child is protected.
The power to end violence is in our hands.
Muy bien, y para continuar con...
To move on with the program we have in the agenda for today, we move on with the intervention through streaming connection with Mr. Pedro Arañón, General Director of the World Organization of...
Your phone's on. My pony's on.
Okay, thank you. Your Excellency, President Gustavo Petro, Honorable Minister Camila Walderson Gromwald, Special Representative Maala Mijid, UN Committee Chair Ann Skelton, dear Kate Thompson, Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear colleagues and friends, buenos dias. I'm honored to welcome you to the first of its kind ministerial conference, and I'm grateful to President Petro and the government of Colombia for hosting it. Muchas gracias. I'm very sorry that I cannot be with you in person as I had hoped to be. Nelson Mandela said, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. By that measure, our collective soul is badly stained, because every year, half of all children globally experience some form of violence. The results are serious harm to their physical and mental health and well-being, setbacks to their education and future employment, unhealthy behaviors, and perpetuating the cycle of violence from generation to generation. Addressing this horrific reality requires concerted action from all of us at every level, from political capitals to schools, communities, and homes. That's what this conference is about, because we know it's possible to make a difference. Health providers have a critical role to play in providing survival-centered care, including for those who suffer sexual abuse. But beyond the clinic, we can help to stop violence from occurring in the first place by identifying those at risk and taking steps to protect them. This work must be survival-centered, with children and youth as active partners, because violence is preventable. WHO and our partners have produced a package of evidence-based interventions called INSPIRE, 7 strategies for ending violence against children. This is complemented by the RESPECT package of strategies for preventing violence against women and girls. Both of these packages of interventions provide evidence-based strategies to stop the cycle of violence in a wide range of settings: in homes, through parenting interventions, in schools, through life skill training, in social protection schemes, through cash transfers, in communities, by changing harmful social norms, including gender norms, and in the built environment through the creation of urban upgrading schemes and public spaces. These strategies have demonstrated that dramatic reductions in violence and its impacts are possible. For example, parenting interventions in South Africa reduced abusive parenting by more than half, and in the Philippines by 1/3. Schools-based interventions have been associated with reducing violence among students by almost half in Uganda and by 1/3 in the United States. And in Zambia, cognitive therapy for child victims of violence reduced symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder by almost 90%. These interventions work. The challenge is to scale them up for the children and communities that need them most. This conference can be life-changing and life-saving to those children and communities. We need to live here with ambitious plans to dramatically accelerate progress. To this end, I pledge that next year, WHO will establish a new initiative, Childhoods Without Violence, which will partner with 10 to 15 countries to scale up the INSPIRE interventions. WHO will continue to support countries to measure prevalence, monitor progress, develop workforce capacity, and advance global advocacy. I'm also proud of establishing the first WHO Youth Council, which I hope will become a powerful advocate for ending violence against children. My sincere thanks to the countries and other partners that are pledging, and to everyone for working to protect our most promising and vulnerable citizens. As a father and a grandfather, I want to see a world that is safe for my children and all children. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person with you. We're though on the same time zone. I am in New York, and there are some engagements which I really couldn't reschedule, but I hope that you will forgive me for not joining you. But you should know that I'm fully committed to work on this very, very important issue. And when I say this, it's from my heart. So not being there with you means nothing. I'm with you in short, and we're in this together. Muchas gracias. I thank you, and all the best. And based on the decisions, I will follow up and do my share. And full support from WHO.
Muchas gracias al doctor Tedros Adhanom por su intervención. Ahora invito a subir a tarima al señor Omar Abdi, él es el director ejecutivo.
Mr. Omar Atia, the attaché of UNICEF. Welcome.
Excellencies, honorable ministers, distinguished delegates, partners, young people, good morning. First of all, a huge appreciation and thanks to the government of Colombia for convening this historic conference. Violence against children is not a new global challenge, but rather a quite recently understood one. For the first time in history, we know its catastrophic prevalence and astronomical economic and social costs. Fortunately, we are also the first generation to know how to stem the tide and ensure every child grows up safe. Violence against children is not just one more issue that needs our attention. It's the root cause of many of our most complex problems. On the flip side, addressing violence against children can be transformational for individuals, families, and societies. As we will hear throughout this conference, violence against children can seriously derail their development and undermine their prospects. Experiencing violence in childhood, including abuse or neglect at home, is the primary preventable cause of mental illness and risk for addiction, exploitation, and crime across the life cycle. The toxic stress associated with experiencing violence and adversity in childhood is a major obstacle to learning and health. Children who experience violence are also more likely to perpetrate or suffer violence as adults, often perpetuating intergenerational and gendered cycle of abuse. These negative outcomes that stem from violence against children cost an estimated 5% of global GDP, or the equivalent of trillions of US dollars. For a fraction of these costs, we can end violence against children. Violence against children is a massive problem, but not an intractable one. And that is why we are all here today, to identify solutions and make collective and individual commitments to invest in these. As UNICEF, we stand committed to supporting and contributing to these efforts through focusing on 3 breakthrough solutions based on scientific evidence, which promise the widest impact in preventing all forms of violence and reducing its long-term harms. These solutions are, first, universal access to well-designed parent and caregiver support interventions, which have consistently shown effectiveness in reducing violence against children. Second, universal access to safe and enabling school environments. Outside of the family, school is the most important institution in the lives of most children. In many cases, schools are best placed to identify children at risk or experiencing harm in their families, online or in their communities, and help them on the path to recovery and away from further cycles of violence. Third and finally, quality response and support services for children who need them. Such services can provide early interventions to avert violence, prevent its recurrence, and reduce its long-term impacts by providing children and families with pathways to support and responsive services. Our concrete pledge around these solutions is the following. Over the next 5 years, UNICEF pledges to build national capacities to reach first 70 million families with parent and caregiver support programs that foster healthy and equitable families. Second, 142 million primary and secondary age children with safe and enabling school environments. And third, 30 million children at risk or experiencing violence with specialized social welfare, health, or justice services. We will, of course, continue to work hand in hand with all of you at the local, national, and global levels to achieve these. And UNICEF will continue to build evidence about innovative and scalable ways to end all forms of violence against children, addressing the root causes of gender-based inequalities and transforming harmful gender norms and power imbalances between women and men, girls and boys that underpin violence against children and women are a fundamental core of these strategies. These strategies are also critical for tackling forms of violence enabled by digital technologies. This forum is long overdue, but there is no better moment for action than now that we are equipped with the necessary knowledge and evidence, and that we stand strong to achieve the breakthrough by way of collective action in tackling this fundamental issue. It is high time to end violence against children because we can and we must, but also because we know that doing so will be transformational for our children, families, communities, and societies. Thank you all for your partnership in this commitment to protect children now and for generations to come. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. So now we give the floor to Dr. Jarbas Barbosa da Silva, Regional Director from the Pan American Health Organization. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends. It's an honor for me to participate in this ministerial conference on ending violence against children to reaffirm the Pan American Health Organization's PAHO persistent commitment to this important public health issue. We are all too aware of how violence affects health and well-being, and I am convinced that the multi-sector collaboration in this area is necessary for sustainable development in the economy, for social inclusion and global justice. This is nowhere as evident as here in the region of the Americas. By the end of today alone, more than 200 children, adolescents, and youth will have died of homicide in the Americas. This region is infamous for the highest homicide rate in the world, especially in young males, high acceptance of corporal punishment, and gun violence in schools and our streets. 1 in 4 girls aged 15 to 19 years globally are estimated to have experienced partner violence before they turn 20 years of age. While child marriage rates have declined globally, the rate in Latin America and the Caribbean has been stagnant for more than 2 decades, contributing to increased risk of intimate partner and sexual violence. Evidence suggests that changes in social norms that discourage violence can be achieved. We can reduce the number of children who witness violence between their parents, thereby reducing the probability of these children experiencing or perpetrating violence later in life. By raising awareness and creating safeguards, we can reduce the number of children involved in bullying who are also more likely to become perpetrators of other types of violence. Exposure to child maltreatment as well as dating and sexual violence have all been linked to other forms of violence in later life. This is a cycle we can break. Let me now continue in Spanish. Es de gran trascendencia que esta primera conferencia ministerial mundial para poner fin a la violencia contra la niñez se celebra
To end violence
desde la violencia armada hasta
from the sexual violence and the cyber harassment. So I appreciate Colombia's leadership for being the host of this conference and also the support from other state members of the Pan American Health Organization, PAM, at this venue. Latin America is going through the highest challenge, but we understand also the system better than anyone else. The SPS leader, the health system in this matter for more than 20 years, translating it into more capacity of healthcare staff to boost changes and policies to protect the communities and also to prevent violence and to manage new partnerships that will leverage our impact. The recent pandemic reinforced the urgency of acting. So we have the solutions to prevent this violence, and this is the moment to start acting. So we need to focus on what we know that it works. Evidence-based interventions that have proven to have a real impact, such as the INSPIRE framework. We cannot address violence without paying attention to the social inequalities, including migration, ethnicity, disability, and the socioeconomic status. Our responsibility is collective, and we need to help those who are left behind. That means that the boys, girls, and children of all age and every diversity, all the survivals, those with disability, migrants, indigenous representatives, Afro-descendants must participate to end this and to bring the solutions. And we are ready to work with all of you, and you will implement the commitments of him personally. I am committed to give visibility to this system and to implement innovative solutions so we can go beyond accelerating this, guaranteeing that this conference will drive to a real change. Together, we can guarantee that boys, girls, and teenagers will live a long life, happy, healthy, free of violence. Thank you for your commitment with the system. I wish you a very productive meeting with high impact. Thank you very much. Thank you, Director Jarbas. I invite to the floor now Professor Anne Skitton, Chairperson of the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. Please, a round of applause.
Excellencies, colleagues, children and young people, what a great honor it is for me to bring greetings from the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child here to Bogota, Colombia, at this very important event. This year, we are celebrating the 35th anniversary of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and so it really is a very important moment for us to look at how we can upscale our efforts to urgently address the scourge of violence against children. At the Committee on the Rights of the Child, we hear from children in our pre-sessional meetings, and what they tell us is that violence is a major concern to them. They also make the link between violence against children, violence against themselves, and the mental health concerns that they're experiencing. We assure them that we will hold their states accountable for failing to act, to prevent and respond in an effective way to their experiences. What we do in our review of states' parties is that we ask states about what they are doing in terms of prevention, early intervention, and response. And we focus on violence from private sources as well as from public sources, because states have a crucial role to play in all of those, in all spheres of violence against children. But one of the things that we sometimes have to break through is the idea that not everyone accepts that all forms of violence are violence against children. There is still, in many communities, an impunity, for example, for hitting children in the home, for corporal punishment. And that is something that the committee has repeatedly and will continue to call out. There is also sometimes a tendency for states to say, well, there are these cultural issues, it's difficult. Yes, of course, it's difficult, it takes time, but the committee will continue to ask, what are the states doing to ensure that culture develops in a positive, child-centered way? We also are concerned about interpersonal violence in the home, which, even if it is not directly affecting children, in other words, if they are not the recipients of that violence themselves, but they are present when it occurs and living in the same household, we know the impact of that, and we do elaborate on this to states as well. Then when it comes to violence from public sources, it is so much more clear what the state's role is immediately and directly, because very often it is the laws of the country, the policies of the countries that are allowing this violence to continue. For example, almost 800 million children are still attending schools where corporal punishment is permissible. And there are still some countries that have corporal punishment, or whipping, as a sentence. And there are still institutions that use corporal punishment where children are living. And all of this is so obviously preventable. With the stroke of a pen, the task can be begun, but it doesn't end there, because one has to change the hearts and minds. So what I can say that the Committee on the Rights of the Child will commit to do, because this is an important time that we need to make new commitments, we will intensify our questions in state party reviews around these issues. So states parties that will be attending, and I know I'm speaking to many Pathfinder countries here who won't be anxious about what I'm saying because they're already doing so much, but there are many countries that might still be anxious, but we will be asking those questions about what is being done to prevent violence against children in private and public settings. We this year reviewed 2 states that are at war. We reviewed Russia and Israel. And so there we were having conversations about violence in its most extreme form. And still, was important to ask those questions and to hand down some strong concluding observations in that regard. I think it's also important to say that we will continue to hand down concluding observations that will provide clear guidance and will be encouraging states to engage in international cooperation and to learn from others. And we can start that here at this important conference because we're all gathered together with the same commitment. We will also actively promote access to justice and effective remedies for children, for those children who have been victims of violence. This is the committee's general comment that it is working on at the moment, and we invite states and civil society and academics, all partners, children as well, to please provide inputs to us to make sure that this access to justice general comment is truly one that can help children seek and find solutions to the harm that they have experienced. And in that regard, we will also be calling on states to ratify the optional protocol on a communications procedure. That communications procedure or complaints procedure has also led to several findings by the committee in relation to violence against children. This is related to schools and to institutions, and we are definitely open to receiving more of those cases. So those of you who work with and for children, please know that our door is open. We are there to listen. And it's only if we all do our part, do our work, that we can really make the change that we need to end violence against children. I thank you.
Thank you very much to Ann Skelton for her talk. And remember that the national government is organizing this event to accelerate the implementation of the ODS 16.2, based mainly on ending the mistreatment, exploitation, children treatment, and torture, every type of violence against children. This is part of the 16 SDG to promote peaceful and inclusive solution. That's why it is important to have this civic conference here, and it has more than 1,400 international delegates, including the participation of 194 states from the WHO. The President of the Republic is entering the venue. Please, a round of applause for him. Now you can sit down. Thank you. Thank you to all the attendees today. To continue with the agenda of this Magnum event, I give the floor to Ms. Lydia Matole. So I invite you to come to the floor. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Ministers, distinguished guests, and fellow advocates for child safety, good morning. My name is Lydia Mattioli. I am a survivor, a child protection advocate from Kenya, and a member of the Global Survivor Council that was formed by the Brave Movement and Together for Girls. I was sexually abused. Thank you. I was only 5 years old when I was sexually abused by a neighbor. And being so young, I could not comprehend it until later in life. I did not even have the language to vocalize my experience for a very, very long time, until when I started to understand advocacy and I started to understand what sexual violence is. That's when I knew I was violated. I got into advocacy work as a commitment to protect my daughter and other children from the traumas that I had to go through from my abuse. And in my work with survivors for the past 10 years, I have seen how powerful it is to integrate the wisdom and the expertise of survivors in any frameworks or any solutions that we are designing to end violence against children. Unfortunately, that is not the case when it comes to national and international frameworks. Survivors are ignored. No one is listening to our voices. No one is amplifying our voices. And that is why today, as I stand here, I speak for survivors. And my ambition for this conference is that all the nationalities represented here, we will start integrating the wisdom and the expertise of survivors in all of the frameworks that we're designing geared towards ending violence against children. Because we've lived through the experience, we know where the gaps are. And we know what solutions will work and what solutions will not work. And so my call to action is that every nationality represented here should commit to form a national survivor council for your country. And this survivor council can incorporate, survivors who have gone through different forms of violence, and they can advise. When you're coming up with policies, they can advise you, what is the best approach? What are some of the trauma-informed practices that should be integrated in all of these policies? What are the outcomes that can be anticipated? I also think that it's very, very important to include survivors in the accountability. Because I feel like we talk about all of these things that we want to do for our children, but then who is keeping us accountable? Who? So when we have the national survivor councils in place, these are the people that will be holding us accountable, telling us this is the far that we've come, this is what more that needs to be done, and this is where we're going off track, And I believe we're here for that purpose. Looking at this room, I see global leaders, I see allies, I see partners. I feel like when we bring our resources, when we bring our influence, our commitments together and prioritize survivors, then we will make the change that we want to see. We will help create a safe world for our children. That is what I believe. And I invite you to honor these commitments as we continue with the discussions today and tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias a todas las personas que hasta el momento.
Thank you very much, everyone who have intervened. Ladies and gentlemen, next will address you Mr. President of Colombia, Dr. Gustavo Petro Urrego. So, children, where are you? It's a conference where you should have a voice, not only participation, but decision-making capability. It's my cordial greeting in this scenario. We have people with ties, elegant, and coming together. We sometimes speak and we do not get too much out of us. And children have to get ready to press the governments because it is not precisely a better world. Nevertheless, news are not unpleasant, catastrophic, terrible, as the one I have here now around violence against childhood. I'd like to tell the 143 ministers that have come from different nations of the world And this city of Bogota that is being harmed by the climate collapse. Now there is no drinkable water in most of the city in Bogota. That's part of the discussion, but the good news is, for example, that in Colombia, yesterday or the day before yesterday, we celebrate the 15 years of a girl. Leslie is her name. Under the protection of her siblings of the Colombian Institute of Welfare that is here present. We cannot publish the picture for known reasons, but that group of children, siblings, that was the cause of a gathering of the nation of Colombia that a few times get together, unless it is to shout out and cheer the soccer team. But it's just a few reasons for get united. Peace hasn't gotten us united, and war either, nor the war, the peace, and nights and days of wars and peace. But this time, some girls helped us get together because they walked days and weeks in the Amazon jungle. Nobody had the hope to find them alive. They kept the nation together, watching one of the most important facts of that episode. We might have facts, pictures, movies showing many details of the reality in the jungle, but one of the fundamental details was to be able to join nation for the life of children that were lost in the jungle. When you look in the history, they were not completely lost. So they felt that in the jungle, they were indigenous children from Amazon areas that were living in the Amazon jungle. They were not lost, and they had that knowledge. They knew how to be in the jungle and survive in the jungle for weeks, in a jungle that for any of us would be difficult to live in.
But they did it. And behind saying just the army, General Sanchez, I remember him from the Air Force being the commander of that operation with all the technology and his Western military education, radars, aircrafts, all together with the indigenous communities from the Amazon with their own knowledge. Let's call it with their own technology, and the spiritual sessions of Yahweh, calling the spirits that they believe that live on trees that give life to the jungle, because they consider that the jungle is the Madre Selva, the mother jungle. That's preserved in Spanish, Madre Selva. And the two knowledge met together, the Western, ancestral, different ethnics, different groups, different indigenous, and the general can say that in the end, the indigenous, with their knowledge and perception, were the ones who in the end were able to find the boys and girls with the soldiers from this country. What they were running away from, the intra-family violence, something like that. The concept of family is not exactly the same from the ancestral families versus the Western one. They tried to meet the country, but they didn't realize the additional elections that besides the National Union, this adventure was doing that ended up being very happy with this meeting. A state that had no idea how to deal with this. That was so hard, how to treat these boys and girls without community, without father, in quotation. And we needed to explore another culture away from what the public servants receive education at college and all that. Yesterday was the celebration of 15 years. She requested a nice dress.
And she was happy with her dress, and she sent greetings to the Colombian peoples and the president. Those are happy facts that can show paths, ways. Then Colombia did something that in general it has never done, to prioritize childhood, to make it real, the motto of children's are first, they go first. We cannot forget that motto. It's our motto. It was our motto in the Human Bogota, Bogota Humana, my campaign when I was leading the city. And apart from the lexicon, children go first. That should be a behavior of any government, any state, any citizen, to take care of childhood. It's like building a collective mother, a collective father. At any instant, any situation, any difficult or easy situation, any situation, human beings, when we get together to be either at a street, at a school, in politics, in the state, in the institutions, a university, they always have to look for that care behavior. We have generalized a permanent attitude of care, a culture of care, a state that instead of privileging private businesses, big private businesses, and they forget their people, their life, they have lost their direction regarding the fact that first is children. The state exists to take care of them. In the end, what's the humanity is going to exist if we don't have any humanity? Numbers. In Colombia, we have bad numbers. In Bogota, bad numbers. So, what's violence about? The title of this talk is To End Violence Against Childhood. And we frame it on certain criteria, narrow criteria, in my opinion, that do not let us see the magnitude of violence in Colombia or the world. Sexual violence, sexual abuse, undoubtedly. Tens of millions of children in the world are abused. 90 million, I think, is the number. 90 million. Which would show all the contrary to what I have just said in my speech. A whole humanity in degradation. 1 out of 6 children are killed. They die. They do not starve. They are killed sometimes by a disease that is difficult to overcome. They are killed by human beings. We have seen a Dantesque case with this girl that was raped and dismembered. And this is shared in the world. It shows, oh, the neighbor did it. Of course, a man that is degraded. I would like the journalism investigation. I would like for them, where did that guy come from? What's his life? He was young. I saw the pictures. You know, in order to do something so degraded, to rape and kill, for sure we would find sources of degradation on which a state should act, not only to capture and incarcerate the killer, but to prevent from more killers to arise or show up? How do we rebuild humanity in such a way that we can effectively take care the totality of the of children in the world? And here we go into discussions that have to do with politics that I would just leave in the beginning of the conference just as my opinion. The opinion of the President of the Republic of Colombia. Violence is not exclusively abuse, homicide, and hitting, punching. That has remained natural through generations in Colombia. You know, here we have a motto like, letter gets in and learned with blood. Oh, it was normal for teachers to hit me with a stick in the hand. That was the Colombian education, hitting, punching. And it extends the thesis that that's an immense lie. Never knowledge gets in with blood. You only build slaves, the contrary of education. I believe there are topics that are violence and are not acknowledged. We need to recognize. Let me just use an example. Yesterday in this city, that we lived a dramatic moment in the north, in the south. This city shows territorially the reality of a Colombia that is profoundly unequal. We are the second country, most unequal country. We have areas where children live, like in Washington, and other areas where children live, like in the most blocked and poor countries of the world. What we lived yesterday shocked some people. It was a democratic shock for all of us. There was a rain, an immense rain, a storm. In 2 days, we had so much rain like in 1 month. In 2 days, we have had more, as much rain as just one.
¿Cómo sucedió? Por el colapso climático. Por la misma razón que sucedió en Valencia, España, por la misma razón que sucedió en Barcelona, por la misma razón que sucedió en las Azores, Portugal, por las mismas razones que está inundada hoy la Guajira en el extremo norte de Colombia, por una depresión que se convirtió en tormenta, por la energía del mar acumulada, energía del mar que se acumula porque se calentó la atmósfera y la atmósfera se calentó porque la sociedad capitalista ha arrojado, sobre todo en el norte del mundo, enormes cantidades de residuos gaseosos del petróleo y del carbón. Cada vez peor. El huracán va hacia el norte, ya había pasado uno inmenso como un monstruo matando muchísimos norteamericanos en la Florida. Paradójicamente en la Florida no creen en la crisis climática, pero cada instante pasa sobre ellos. Y yo me pregunto ayer en Bogotá, los niños y niñas que por mí estaban encerrados en los buses escolares de los colegios más prestigiosos de Bogotá, que quedan al norte de la ciudad y que tienen como ruta la autopista norte, construidas sobre los humedales y los lagos por pura voracidad mercantil. Tiene un peaje el mejor de Colombia en términos de ingresos. Yo me pregunto qué sentían cuando el agua iba subiendo, cuando el bus y los carros estados de la autopista quedaba atrancada con miles y miles de vehículos. ¿Qué sentían si no se podía salir sin cruzar las aguas? En una ciudad que no tiene ni un barco, porque aquí nuestro río hace tiempos prácticamente están bien.
Doesn't have any drinkable water because our rivers are just dying. What were they feeling? Nature, maybe. What were they feeling when they saw the water raising? You know, they were in the cars. We should analyze that today. Why did we build on top of the water? Valencia should analyze that. Barcelona should analyze that. Public policy is not created a world against children.
So, not that aggressive attitude from one abuser, a puncher, an assassin, a killer, but what we call climate change is going to affect the children all over in the humanity. Is not this a violence what we are doing in the state, the parliaments, kings, dictatorships? Aren't we all together producing a policy that is gonna affect the most the president? And is not that gonna be important with this climate collapse? That means to turn the fossil fuel that comes from gas and all. Don't be hypocrites. We are leaving to these children, no matter if they survive, we're leaving to them the worst of their worlds. If we hardly can measure what we are going through in our only livelihood, how the city is being flooded, how the city that used to be a lake because the water is recovering its own space, how they can say that greed is not worth it and that public policy needs to be around life if we are already living this in Bogota, that we need to stop water, drinkable water 1 or 2 days when we used to be surrounded by water. So what's the future for our children in 10 or 20 years? The American, the French, the Italian, the Asian, Sub-Saharan, Latin American, all of them.
Con su vestido nuevo.
What is Leslie gonna say with her 15-year-old's new dress? So,
Porque
violence is coming not from the abuser, the raper, no, even words. It's coming from the politicians, the policies, the power, the capitalism. Today, the power has become into the worst violator, raper, abuser of childhood. If not, just take a look to Gaza. Gaza, well, that's something else. The war, and besides that, let me touch another one, the war. Colombia is living in different regions, not here. It's many kilometers around, hundreds of kilometers. There is war. We have living here the underground violence, but we are living this war of drugs, not the ideological one like in the past with nostalgia. No, this war is produce of decisions that we haven't made here in Colombia or in the powers of the world, and that's the war of the drugs. How many children are armed today, killing among them here in Colombia, killing each other? And I have many cases in Sudan, Lebanon, and how many tens of thousands already died killed by bombs at Gaza? War main rival is not the front soldier. Now with the new military technology, you cannot see the soldier as they are not face to face, watching to each other. That might cause other episodes like the ones from the First World War, wondering, why are we killing each other? Let's hug and embrace and play football, because they have no idea what's war or what's a refusal,
o sufrir el frío de las noches.
what's to work during the night, cold nights. Now, no, drones, robots, computers from New York or Paris or Moscow that are moving like robots, some human beings with machines to destroy. And who is the main victim? Boys and girls. They are the ones who are dying the most. The case of Colombia, hundreds of them. Gaza, tens of thousands there. And who caused that deaths? The power. For the Colombian for forbidding hypocritically the drug, those who are forbidding it, they use cocaine. Or not? And here we are not allowed to authorize and have a legal production killing our boys and girls because that's profitable. Hypocrisy with because when I am in front extreme right servant person, they are gonna call me a corrupter because I am asking globally to legalize that shit like whiskey or even worse or better, I don't know.
Pero lo que uno observa en la práctica es que han arrojado
trash. That trash has all our kids, boys, girls, in Latin America and globally. Once they go out the door of their house, immediately the drug dealer is offering to them the drugs without any knowledge, and many times they use it. We throw our childhood to the arms of the mafia that is turning them into drug addicts. And why don't we use that money to prevent? No. We are throwing bombs where drug is being produced, where other boys and girls are dying. Poor boys here, children there. War against drug has left 1 million Latin American dead, millions in prison in the United States, and boys and girls with fusiles killing each other or in the hands of the neighborhood drug dealer, the one who sells clandestine way drugs, earning more and more money and getting more and more children from the rich mainly to the addiction. Who is exercising power then? The power. Hypocrites. And the third one that I don't see in the figures, and that's to say that's the exodus, migration so-called by the politicians. I call it exodus because in the Bible there was one exodus, because I know that the history of the humanity have gone through many of them. Human beings want to find water and food, live in deserts trying to find the promised land. The land, promise, but they want to find water and food. So that's the promised land for me. And today, they are imprisoning and killing whoever is trying to find that promised land. Because the global inequality, because the climate collapse, and the poor countries are receiving the effects. We suffer the climate crisis that the richest riches from the north have generating because of the production and the consumption of the oil and gas produce. So byproducts, as more you inhale or exhale, those products, they're richer. Who are the ones who are dying? Who are leaving their lands because of the lack of water? Who is walking more and more, as it happened with the indigenous communities in the Amazon River when the first time there was a drought in the Amazon River, and they walked for kilometers looking for water. And that's happening already in Africa and Central Asia. And where are the boys and girls from that exodus? Aren't they included within those large migrations? And the United States society said exhaling in first place of coal, gas, and oil. waste. Silent the climate crisis and collapse. They told us, no, don't go to your promised land, because that's not been promised for us, only for them. And what's going to happen? What's the political line? To build walls? To have some concentration zones? To let mom and girl die south of the United States, north of Mexico, as it just happened? No one cry for them because she's a migrant. Migrant are waste to the eyes of who? The power. Boys and girls. For them, the solution shouldn't be the prosperity of these people, of these states. It shouldn't be their clean energy power to be in peace with nature, as thousands and thousands were screaming in Cali at COP16 in the western of Colombia.
Or maybe power wants death. Who has won? The power that wants the death of the migrant, or the possibility of a world pact for the peoples in the south to be prosperous and they remain in their paradise, because Colombia is indeed a paradise, the promised land of which from which we don't want to leave. That's hunger, climate collapse, war, exodus. They are worse than the beaters, rapers, but it is not an individual that has to go to jail because of that, but it's a world power. That 5 numbers that takes us to the homicide of the humanity that starts with childhood. That's what we need to transform. We need to resist that. And these conferences should prepare us towards those kinds of resistance and fights, because in the end it's a fight. A global democracy is fundamental if humanity wants to survive on this beautiful earth that has been given to us. And I don't want to get into religious questions. Thank you very much, and very kind for hearing us.
Gracias, señor presidente. Y para
Thank you, Mr. President. We have closed the opening of these Ministry World to end the childhood, and I invite you to stay on stage for the photo. Please, we call Vice President Francia Elena Marquez, Ministry of Health, Mr. Jaramillo, and Gervas Barbosa, Executive Attaché UNICEF, Omar Abdi, the President Consultant for Human Rights, Lourdes de Castro. Special invitation to all the delegations of international children, the delegation of national children of ICBF, to go to stage for this official photo to seal this opening of this Ministerial World Conference to end violence against childhood. And so we have finished the opening of the World Ministry Conference to end violence against childhood. We invite all our guests to remain sitting, please, while the President leaves the room so that we can resume our agenda. Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Dana Rendon. It's a pleasure for me to join you today. I know many of you today have dedicated your lives to protect children. So please take a moment, look around. Do not let the particularity of these beings to go. It's a room of leaders ready to act for children affected by violence. When? Well, all through these 2 days we will hear of progressive commitments, the prohibition of corporal punishment and digital bullying, national implementation of bringing up programs, and you will hear powerful voices, champions of change from the government, civil society, philanthropy, and of course, young survivals, children. Childhood must be the focus of our attention in all our conversations. In the next days, in order to do that, I will request 2 things. First, remember when you were 7 years old, what you wanted to do, what you wanted to be. While we arranged the next part of the agenda, I invite you to take your seat so that we can move on with our agenda. I invite you to take a seat, check the agenda so that we can resume.
I will call you. Yes. Sí.
A continuación, damos paso al segmento Voces por el Cambio, en el que nos acompañan niños y jóvenes de Colombia, México y Zimbabue. Segmento estará moderado por la señora Nayat Maala Enchi, representante especial del secretario general sobre la violencia contra los niños.
Hello everybody. Just as we heard that
ending violence against children cannot be done with children. And here, I will be happy that we have some quiet moments because we are receiving, welcoming the children's delegation. And really, I met them twice, and as we told, nothing for them without them. So without further ado, really I want and I will be happy if all of us stand up and applaud while I am welcoming them. Anna Sofia, Chikaina, Gloria, you have the floor. Do you have a mic? You can speak. Take, the floor is yours.
Buenos días.
Good morning. My name is Ana Sofia. I'm coming on behalf of the International Delegation of Children and Adolescents. I'm from Colombia, a beautiful department called Cauca. We are coming from the International Delegation of Childhood to speak about those different topics and violence. Today we would like to welcome this conference, international conference, to end violence against children and adolescents. We are thrilled because this is like a wish of childhood to know that we so much wish our voices to be heard is becoming a reality. We are thrilled because we are from different countries sharing different cultures, languages, thoughts, among many other things. But today we are joined for the same purpose, to suggest things in order to end violence against boys, girls and adolescents. This thrills us up because we are joining communities, we are the voice of childhood and many others whose voice was finished, ended. And we would like to be the voice of those unconformities that they lived, and as childhood we get together to contribute to the solution, to say that we don't want any more violence, that we not only represent a number, we represent life. Violence represents a vulneration, a breach to our rights, something that we don't want to keep happening. We know today that in the previous years we haven't had the route measures to end violence, but that belongs to the past. Now childhood is in the present, and as that present we request, demand to take action for this violence against childhood ends. So mainly to hear our realities and listen to each of us, the children and adolescents. We know that the path in order to end violence is not easy, and it is not short. If we work together, if we hear childhood, if we get together, all of us, we're going to accomplish it. Childhood needs and demands living and growing in a safe environment, a peaceful place where our rights are not breached anymore, from where we need to grow up free and safe. Thank you very much.
A pleasant day to you all here present,
Para todos distinguidos, invitados, para todas las personas presentes. Yo me llamo Shakena, soy de Zimbabue. Soy uno de los delegados de los niños.
On how we can end violence against children, not just here in Colombia, but all across the world. We have come up with our core actions that we think if you implement in your countries, we can produce a better results, we can address to our goal, that is the 2030, the sustainable go on ending violence against children, it is in our deep concern that we, as our authorities or as our leaders, we shall promise and we shall commit to end violence. All we want is a dedication. We want you to give us the exact promise. You should not let us, because we are here, and we know you love us, and we know we are determined on ending violence against children, and it is in our deep concern that in this you are going to promise something that will bring better results in the near days. And on this platform, I shall hand it over to Gloria so that she can add more and she can elaborate more on the things that we are here, why we are here seated in front of you, and why we are, why this conference has been produced and why it is in action. Thank you.
Hola, muy buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to know all the representatives of the country. My name is Gloria Solay. I'm 15 years old and coming from Mexico. For me, it's an honor to be able to tell you about the problems that we have lived in the world. We, all of us, all the children, we are living daily issues. We come from different countries, and as my colleague said, we come with the same purpose, to end violence against children, because that violence makes people to prevents children to have their dreams, live their dreams. We need to avoid pornography, infant forced labor. Children are exploited. We need education. We need to avoid bullying against disabilities. Discrimination has to end. We have several problems with migrant children because they do not receive attention from government. They migrate because their economies are not sustainable. They cannot solve their basic needs. In my community, we have two problems that go together, is infant pregnancy with infant marriage. So girls are raised to get an early union. I would ask each of the government to please take action now. Action now. Those actions must be implemented right away, because infant violence cannot continue to exist. Children, boys and girls, have come here to say that you have to act now. We are not an object. We are children. We are living.
I just want, because I know that you did a video, if I'm not wrong. And do you want to show this film or not today?
Sí, claro que sí.
Yes, of course, please. I would like to screen the video because it's a call to action for each children. We want the actions to be implemented right away. Speaking indigenous language. We are scared. It is difficult to go to a park. We are fearful. We are subject from violence. They are not taken into account by the government because they still say they do not make a decision, but that's a change that we want to be made. That's important for us. We can contribute with incredible ideas to create change.
From a child perspective, not an adult.
Could we fix the problem because we are seeing it in the screen but not in the big screen?
Kwetu Masasi ndio ilikuwa penda lialia, mabombe zinakuwa lia kila saa na dakika.
Debemos salir a las calles porque todo el tiempo estamos asustados.
So we fear to go.
Muy difícil porque al salir a un parque tenemos mucho miedo, mucho temor.
Ils sont punis agressivement, ils sont blessés, ils marchent dans la cour avec des genoux, ce qui n'est pas bon, c'est l'agression, c'est la violence.
Nuestras opiniones como
jóvenes, como niños, no se toman en cuenta por los gobiernos porque aún ellos no tienen la suficiente edad para tomar una decisión, pero ese cambio que nosotros queremos hacer es muy importante para nosotros.
Podemos abordar todas las ideas tan increíbles que pueden generar un verdadero cambio.
म र हामी जस्ता बालबालिकाको परिवारसँग 2-3 दिन समय बिताएर हामीहरूको जीवन अवस्थाको बारेमा बुझेर उहाँहरूलाई
رسالة مش رؤساء العالم وكجار كابتن يعني خوجهم الزار النازحين وفقراء الدين.
La responsabilidad que tienen estos líderes mundiales.
Well, the call to the action come from the official international delegation group, but children asking for support and call to the action because that needs to be implemented now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I just want, really, if you allow, to bring all the children who are part of the delegation present on the stage and really to congratulate them, because the only thing, la cosa que es más importante, acción ahora.
Action now is the most important part. Each state needs to start acting now. Someone, a kid, a child at your state has been affected psychologically or physically. Think about it. ¿Vas a comer? From the international official delegation, we want to appreciate you for being here, listening to us. You're gonna the ones called to the action because it's important to end violence against children. Thank you very much.
Your attention as we're about to embark on a journey of the next section as we discuss what's important in the world to end violence against children. So if you're outside grabbing your coffee, if you're still having those small talks and engagements, while you do so, may you kindly please make your way back to your seat as we're about to continue with our next exciting session of discussions right here at the first Global Ministerial Conference on ending violence against children. I think before we begin, let's give the young voices another warm round of applause. They did absolutely amazing as young children, young people challenging us to do better as governments, as adults, as just people coming together to converse on ending violence against children around the world. So thank you once again to the young people joining us. I'll introduce myself once again. My name is Tumelo Mototwane. I will be handling the program from henceforward, and I would like to thank my colleagues for doing such an amazing job earlier on this morning in making sure that the formalities go ahead smoothly. So as we embark on this journey, I just want to comment on the action and the impact of the action that you and I are taking today, what action it is, and perhaps to give you a more perspective of what to expect. Over the coming few days, there will be progressive pledges that we will hear right here on this stage, from prohibiting corporal punishment as well as digital safety legislation for national rollouts of parenting programs. We'll also be creating safe school settings together. So inviting you on this journey as we do this as a collective and commit our pledges right here on stage. But ladies and gentlemen, you'll also be getting to hear from powerful voices, champions for change from across different governments, civil society. We'll be hearing from philanthropy and, of course, survivors, young people, as well as children. Now, remember, ladies and gentlemen, it is the children that are front and center, and we need to keep them in our conversation over the next coming days. But of course, to help us do that, I'm going to ask you to be proactive and do just a few things for me today. As a matter of fact, I will ask you to do one thing for me in this very moment, just to check if we are still on the same page. So what I would like you to do right now is to kindly stand up, if you may. Stand up, ladies and gentlemen, look under your chair. Look under your chair, and you will find there an envelope. Now, this is your envelope. Please wave it to me if you see an envelope. I'd like to see you. Okay, I see your envelope. I see your envelope. Awesome. Open that envelope. That's your envelope. Now, if you open it, that piece of card in your hand has the name, it has the age, as well as the country of a child. I'll repeat, that card that you have in your hand, it has a name, it has an age, as well as the country of origin of that child, and perhaps one of the billion boys and girls affected by violence every single year. So keep that card with you. Keep that card with you, but most importantly, the thought of that child with you as we progress through conversation today as well as tomorrow. And see if that keeps you grounded, as well as guiding you and your ambitious actions as much as possible. So I think it's befitting that when you have a name of a child, their age and the country of origin, you know that today and tomorrow, distinguished guests, is quite personal. Now, once again, just to remind you, every single child has a dream. For many of us in this room today, I'm sure you would agree that casting our mind back to our childhood may not be as easy. But many of you in this conference hall will have experienced some form of violence when you were young. Perhaps you witnessed it, perhaps it was a personal experience, perhaps you read about it, or you've heard about it, but in one way or the other, you have heard about violence against children. But also understand that many of you in this room, ladies and gentlemen, have worked with affected children, and you are here to commit to this conference to make a much more safer and supportive space for children. And that's exactly what we'll be doing as we continue with our conversation for the next 48 hours. I just want to make a pledge from myself as your MC on the stage that if in any way you find yourself uncomfortable, if in any way you find yourself emotional, please note that there is emotional support provided for you during the conference. So we do have a group of experts in the form of psychologists and psychiatrists that are on standby to assist you and ready when you need them. Whenever, please make sure you make use of that support which is right here in the conference. But before we get into our next session, it's a debate and discussion that I look forward to my panelists and moderators standing by on my right, your left. I just want to remind you of a few housekeeping rules. So the first one is that we send our gratitude to our hosts, our Colombian colleagues who have kindly provided complimentary Wi-Fi, which you can find. In case you were not aware, there is complimentary Wi-Fi in the room. So make use of the Wi-Fi, which is VAC 2024. VAC 2024. That's the Wi-Fi that you can use today and tomorrow. But also please remember that all plenary sessions will be translated into the 6 UN official languages, so please do use the headsets provided. If you haven't done so, those are for you to make use of today and tomorrow. But also just the last point, just to ensure that the day flows quite smoothly, I would like to kindly request that all our speakers and moderators make their way to the side of the stage, my right, your left, just before your session starts. So you can calculate 10 minutes before your session starts. We would appreciate you coming forward onto the side so we keep up with time and we catch up with some of our lost time and we run as smoothly as possible. So are we on the same page? Please wave at me if we are all in agreement with some of the housekeeping rules, or say yes, we are. Yes? Yes, we are. Yes? Absolutely. Thanks for that, ladies and gentlemen. Onwards we go. We're getting into our next session, and I should let you know of an incredibly ambitious program which is packed with powerful discussions, panels, progressive thought leaders, and pledges. So I'm looking forward to them, and it means that we have quite a schedule that we have to get through. So if you need to grab coffee, please do freely. You may go outside and help yourself to some hot beverages or a glass of water as we continue with our session. But beginning with our very next session, I would like to introduce the very first one, introducing different perspectives, political, technical, and personal views. Will all begin with a high impact session, ladies and gentlemen, moderated by Dr. Etienne Krug of the World Health Organization, focusing on what is currently at stake and what it will take to end violence against children. So please help me onto the stage. Welcome with a warm round of applause, the moderator, Dr. Etienne Krug, and your panelists. Please clap for them.
Thanks so much, Tumelo, and I'd like to invite all of the panelists to take a chair wherever you'd like. Excellencies, colleagues and friends, good morning. 20 years ago, the World Health Organization published the first ever World Report on Violence in Health, making a strong case for violence against children to be a public health priority. In the foreword, Nelson Mandela wrote, "Safety and security don't just happen. They are the result of collective consensus and public investment." When in the months that followed, I went to my first ever World Health Assembly, very excited because the report was out and we were going to discuss it as a resolution. I started talking to ministers. First Minister of Health I talked to told me, "In my country we don't have violence against children." And another one I talked to said, "Violence has nothing to do with health, it's a problem for justice." And a third one told me, "I'm a minister. I'm educated from Harvard. My husband beats me and my children. And it's good because it reminds us of our place." That was 20 years ago. Look where we are now. Here we are. 1,000 people have traveled from all over the world. 130 countries are represented in this room. 80 ministers are here. We have gone a long way already, and I think we should be happy about the progress we have made. But of course, we can't be satisfied with it. We have to do more and we have to do faster. We've heard it over and over. Target 16.2 is not being met. And this is unacceptable because we have the solutions. We know what needs to be done. We have the Inspire package, which has been mentioned a number of times already. It's a question of all of us making sure it is implemented. And I'm very excited because over the next 2 days, we are going to hear more than 100 pledges from countries. And these are not just promises in vain, a minister who cooked up a pledge on the plane to Bogota. No, many of them have gone through months of preparation. They have been thought out. There is a lot of reflection that has gone into it, and I believe many of these pledges will make a difference. So thanks to all of you. For me, having worked 30 years in this field, being here and listening and seeing these pledges is a dream come true. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to now publicly also add the World Health Organization's pledge and elaborate a little bit on what Dr. Tedros just said. Over the next 5 years, WHO will advance a new global initiative called Childhoods Without Violence. This will focus on scaling up the implementation of INSPIRE and 5 breakthroughs with the greatest potential for rapid prevention gains. Parenting interventions, school-based interventions, response and support services, implementation and enforcement of laws, and online violence prevention. Concretely, today, the World Health Organization commits to measuring national, regional, and global prevalence rates, monitoring implementation progress on the pledges, developing workforce capacity, particularly in the health sector, supporting in-country scale-up, and advancing global advocacy efforts. We look forward to work with all of you on this new initiative. Let me now turn to our panelists. We have a fantastic panel, people renowned from all over the world for their global efforts, for their national efforts. All of them have an impressive track record. So thank you very much for being there. I will introduce you one by one. But I'd like to start globally before digging deeper into the national and local levels. And I'd like to turn to you, Baroness Jennifer Chapman, Under-Secretary of State for Latin America and the Caribbean at FCDO in the UK. Your country has been a pioneer in this field for many years, including through building the evidence on what works and efforts to tackle school-based and online violence. So one direct question for you, because this panel is really of how are we going to accelerate progress. In your view, what will it take to make this a global priority as it should be?
Thank you for the invitation to be here. And before I answer your question, our wonderful MC invited us to think of a child that we knew who had been abused. And I would just like to share somebody called Ashley Hall, who lived in my community. And she was 17 when she was raped and murdered by somebody that she met on Facebook. And I dedicate my trip here across the Atlantic here to Ashley, and I thank you for inviting us to be here together. In terms of what we can do, I think this is a start. As you've said, we have made progress over many years. But it is important that what we do isn't just informed by good intentions or heartfelt pleas or emotion alone, although emotion, I believe, is very important to keeping us focused and to spur us on to action. But what really matters is that what we do is evidence-based, that is it geared towards prevention, because too often we arrive too late and we are trying to support people after the event, and it's right that we should, but we need to work holistically across health, education, housing, conflict, all of these things to help reduce violence against children, which is why today I can share with you that the United Kingdom is going to be contributing £5 million towards this effort, because we are happy to be here, but we want to see action come from this, and we will do whatever we can to share in the leadership that you're providing.
Thank you very much, Baroness. This is a fantastic announcement. Thank you for your leadership, and please keep up the great work, and we look forward to collaborate on that. Moving now to the national level. we have with us His Excellency Balam Barugara Atene, Minister of State for Gender, Labor and Social Development from Uganda. Minister, your country is another pioneer and has shown that a strategic approach to ending violence against children leads to what the Baroness just spoke about, namely the importance of making this a global political priority. You've made it a national one, and I understand that data has been at the heart of your approach to ending violence against children. Could you please tell us a bit more about your efforts?
Good afternoon, distinguished guests. Thank you, Dr. Tiana, for the opportunity. I'm from Uganda. Just like he has mentioned, we are doing very, very well in the prevention of violence against children using the data that was collected by our partner, Population Council. For data to be useful in putting prevention of violence against children on political agenda, data must first of all be credible. Well, increasing number of studies have been conducted on violence against children in recent times. If you have been rigorous and robust enough to provide population level information that can help us make definitive statement about the magnitude, nature, and prevalence of the issue in its so many ways. Also, if you have been comprehensive to the extent of providing national portrait that focus not just on children of citizens, but also on their peers in countries, humanitarian settings. As you are aware, Uganda, we have the biggest population of refugee. We have a couple of refugee settlements, the biggest probably in Africa and probably also in the world. So the same data we use on our own citizens, we are using it, we are collecting data from refugee settlements for humanitarian purposes. In Uganda, we are fortunate to have been among the very first countries globally to conduct the violence against children and youth survey, and the very first to conduct the humanitarian violence against children and survey humanitarian works. This robust, significantly generated a national and well-regarded study have provided us with the humanitarian required to put the prevention of violence against children on political agenda. But we have found the evidence alone is not only a starting point for evidence to be useful and for evidence to make it onto the political agenda. Technical experts must engage policymakers by making evidence intelligible and also link the evidence to policy and program. Just further to mention, we are progressing quite very, very well, establishing the scope of problem, collecting and analyzing the data on violence against children has helped us as policymakers in Uganda understand the magnitude and nature of issues. The information has been used to develop targeted intervention and policies. Also, we have been able to identify risk factors and vulnerable population. That analysis can also be solve specific factors such as poverty, lack of education, conflict, contribute to violence against children. This information has helped us as policymakers design program to address these underlying issues. Also, using the data that we have collected in Uganda, we've been able to track progress and evaluate effectiveness. Data has enabled us as policymakers in Uganda to monitor the effectiveness of the existing policies and programs, making adjustment as needed. This enables effective resource allocation and also efficiently. The data collected has also been key in raising awareness and mobilizing support in the public, in the Ugandan public, and also now on the international level, international community. So also it has enabled us effectively allocate resources to the resource that we need, like in our budget allocation. Data informed decision making helps us ensure that resources are allocated to address the most critical areas of needs by prioritizing evidence-based solutions. Government policymakers, I encourage you to do the same in your respective countries, thereby maximizing the impact of your investment. As much as we have done data, we have also benchmarked the data that was provided by the Global Statistic Report on prevention of violence against children by UNICEF. Also, we have benchmarked it on the UN VAC World Report on violence against children. And conclusively, it is important that we leverage data effectively. We can create a strong case for prioritizing the prevention of violence against children on the political agenda. That is how far we have gone as Uganda. In a summary, our experience in Uganda has been that using data effectively to put prevention of violence against children on the political agenda involves the generation of credible evidence, collaboration between researchers, policymakers, to make sense of the evidence, identifying priorities, embedding these priorities into policy and program documents, and then working together with a wider range of stakeholders to ensure that the prevention happens. As I conclude, I would like to thank the sponsors of this workshop, UNICEF, World Health Organization, the government of Colombia, the government of Sweden. By sharing what is needed to be done, we shall secure our children and we shall make our children violence-free. So I thank you.
Thanks so much, Minister, for your remarks and also for your leadership on the African continent, showing that it is possible in all settings to address violence. From Africa to Asia, we're going to Cambodia. We're very pleased to have with us Her Excellency Ms. Neb Sophip, who is Secretary of State of the Ministry of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth Rehabilitation in Cambodia. Cambodia has been at the forefront of implementing all 7 Inspire strategies. So, Minister, could you please give us some insight into your efforts with a specific focus on what lessons do you have for other ministers in the room? The minister is going to speak with an interpreter, so we'll do it in 2 ways. Yeah.
សូមអរគុណសូមអធិស្ឋានដែរដោយសារខ្ញុំមិនអាចនិយាយភាសាអង់គ្លេសបានតែខ្ញុំមានអ្នកបកប្រែ
First of all, I would like to thank for the organizer that gave me the opportunity for the Cambodia to have a space to sit here. And actually, I apologize about that. I cannot speak English, but I have the interpreter behind me.
ការការពារកុមារគឺជាចំណុចអតិភិបសំខាន់របស់ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាដោយសារជាង1ទសវត្សរ៍មកហើយការការពារកុមារត្រូវបានលើកកម្ពស់នៅក្នុងព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាចា៎
Actually, Cambodia royal government of Cambodia has been prioritized on the child protection, especially the violence against children, are also including in the strategy and the policy as well.
ចាដោយសារព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាគឺជាប្រទេសដំបូងបំផុតដែលមានការសិក្សាថ្នាក់ជាតិមួយពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងការរំលោភបំពានលើកុមារហើយការសិក្សានេះក៏បានលើកឡើងចេញជាផែនការដើម្បីការពារនិងឆ្លើយតបទៅនឹងអំពើហិង្សាលើកុមារដែរ
Kindly to inform you that Cambodia is the first country in the Asian and we have conducted this research in 2013 on the violence against children. Come up with this survey. Cambodia also start up to develop the action plan to implement on violence against children 2017 to 2021 and also extend to 2023.
តាមរយៈការអនុវត្តល្អនឹងតាមរយៈមេរៀននេះហើយក៏ជាការឆ្លើយតបទៅនឹងច្បាប់គោលនយោបាយរបស់កម្ពុជាគឺកម្ពុជានឹងបន្តអនុវត្តល្អហើយនឹងប្រឹងប្រែងទៅនឹងសកម្មភាពជាក់ស្ដែងរួមមាន
Okay, based on the best practice of in Cambodia, and Cambodia also committed to continue to implement to ending violence against children through the strategy.
បន្តលើកកម្ពស់ច្បាប់គោលនយោបាយផែនការនិងនីតិវិធីដើម្បីលើកកម្ពស់កិច្ចការពារកុមារដើម្បីឲ្យដែលមានចែងនៅក្នុងគោលនយោបាយជាតិគាំពារសង្គមនិងគោលនយោបាយជាតិស្ដីពីប្រព័ន្ធកិច្ចការពារកុមារហើយក៏ឆ្លើយតបទៅនឹងគោលការណ៍របស់អង្គការសហជីវជាតិCRC ហើយបន្តទៀតព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាក៏នឹងប្រកាសដាក់ឲ្យប្រើប្រាស់ច្បាប់កិច្ចការពារកុមារហើយនៅក្នុងច្បាប់ នេះគឺមានសារៈសំខាន់នៅក្នុងការបង្ហាញការគ្រប់គ្រងកិច្ចការពារកុមារគ្រប់ទម្រង់នៃអំពើហិង្សាដែលក្នុងនោះក៏មានការដាក់ទណ្ឌកម្មលើរាងកាយផងដែរ
Okay, Cambodia will strengthen law enforcement policy, plan and procedure to promote child protection as well as the national policy on social protection, national policy on child protection system in line with the UN principle. Especially the government Cambodia will be promulgate the child protection law and as the milestone for the protection all form of violence against children and abuse and including corporal punishment as well.
ចា៎ហើយគោលការណ៍សំខាន់មួយទៀតនោះគឺការធ្វើឲ្យកុមារគ្រប់តំបន់ទាំងអស់គឺមានសុវត្ថិភាពកុមារត្រូវមានសុវត្ថិភាពនៅគ្រប់ទីកន្លែងរួមទាំងនៅផ្ទះនៅសាលារៀនក៏ដូចជានៅក្នុងសហគមន៍ហើយកុមារគ្រប់រូបទាំងអស់ដែលត្រូវបានការពារគឺយើងបានន័យថាយើងគោរពទៅតាមគោលការណ៍ជាយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រ Inspire ហើយក៏ជាការអនុវត្តមួយទៅលើកម្មវិធី Cambodia Protect រួមមានការគ្រួសាររឹងមាំយុទ្ធនាការគ្រួសាររឹងមាំនិងកុមារដែលមានការដាក់វិន័យលើកុមារនៅក្នុងសាលារៀនផងដែរចា៎
Cambodia will continue to strengthen the safe environment for children in community to ensuring all the children to be safe in all space in such at home, school and the community through the protecting and the implementation of the Inspire strategy and theory of change including the implementation Cambodia Protect promote positive parenting, strengthening family and positive discipline in school program.
ការបង្កើននិងពង្រឹងការងារសង្គមបានន័យថាកម្ពុជាគឺយើងដឹងច្បាស់ថាការសហការគ្នាជាមួយជាលក្ខណៈប្រព័ន្ធក្នុងកិច្ចការពារកុមារគឺជាការងារសំខាន់បំផុតដែលកម្ពុជាយកចិត្តទុកដាក់សំខាន់
Strengthen the social workforce and capacity of the government, local authority and the civil society organization to promote the service to the children system implementation to ending violence against children.
យើងទាំងអស់គ្នាសិតតែអាចការពារកុមារបានហើយមិនមែនជារឿងចៃដន្យទេដែលយើងទាំងអស់គ្នានៅទីនេះគឺរួមមានខាងការងារសុខុមាលភាពសង្គមខាងអប់រំនិងខាង CRC ទៀតគឺហើយយើងទាំងអស់គ្នារួមគ្នាដើម្បីកិច្ចការពារកុមារចា
We together protect the children.
Thank you so much, Minister. Thanks also for all your efforts in advancing the agenda in your country. Turning to Brianna now. Brianna is a youth mobilizer from the Philippines who I keep meeting all over the world lastly. Brianna, thanks for being with us. You've heard now from 3 governments as well this morning about a number of plans and activities that are taking place. So, in your vision, the young people that you represent, what's your expectation of this conference and even more so, what this conference will change for the future?
Thank you so much, Etienne, for the question and for the member states for setting the scene. I don't want to be repetitive, but something that we've been repeatedly hearing over the past few months and past few days is the fact that we have all the tools to end violence against children. We know what works, we know what doesn't, we know what we need to scale up, but we know what we need to do to scale up and adapt what's already being done in smaller communities. But why exactly haven't we done it? Why, despite all of our efforts over the past few decades, are still lagging behind the SDGs, and 1 billion children are still being affected by violence globally? Exactly what are we missing? And now, I don't want to in any way discredit any of the collective work that we have all done to make the world a safer children. I believe that you guys and so many people around the world are missing something incredibly crucial. Now, listen closely. If we truly want to end violence against children, we need to equip, empower, and support the next generation to actually do it. We need to teach children and young people alternatives to violence so that they know what it actually looks like. Because for so many of us who grew up and experienced violence in multiple settings all over the world, it can actually be so difficult to understand or even imagine what healthy looks like if violence is all we know. And over the past few days, like during the pre-events for the Ministerial Conference, we've been talking so much about how an increase violence in schools, peer violence, gang violence, even children unknowingly inviting other children to engage in online sexual exploitation. We have brothers and sisters who are becoming exactly like the parents, the abusive parents they swore they would never become. And so what we're faced with, the reality right now is that children and young people are becoming perpetrators of violence themselves, and they're also repeating the cycles that we've been trying so hard to fight. And so what else is there? If we truly value prevention, which we've been talking about for so many years, the focus now we need to make is to make sure that children and young people do not make the same mistakes of the previous generation, of your generation, of even my generation. And what this means is engaging us in parenting programs, for example. It means not only teaching parents and caregivers, but also children and young people what it actually means to have a healthy family, what the proper expression of emotions looks like, what it means to solve problems together as a family, for example. It means empowering children and young people to invoke their own rights as human beings by making laws and policy making accessible to everyone. It means teaching children and young people digital literacy skills, so that they know exactly what they can do online and what they shouldn't do, and so that they know what spaces to be in and what spaces not to be in. It also means for all of us setting an example of what it means to exist, coexist in kindness and in harmony and in peace, and to not resort to violence or war. And above all, it means supporting youth-led initiatives and movements because we have the power and the drive to actually completely transform all of the social norms and cultural expectations that we've been facing that perpetuate violence. And so back to Etienne's question about what I hope for the conference. My hope and honestly, my plea for this is for all of you, all of the sectors, to finally take children and young people as actors and as the definitive role that they have in ending violence against children seriously. It means engaging us not just as like tokenistic participants or even like advisory roles, but actually knowing and being with us as leaders and as decision makers. And so when we all go back to our own countries, as we will all eventually do, my hope is that you all will go back and change the system, completely eradicate, wipe out and completely change the system if you have to really put young people and children at the center of everything we do. And because I believe if we do this, we will be able to end violence against children. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brianna. Thanks for your energy, thanks for your passion, and for your advice. Totally agree. Let me turn now to Bessel van der Kolk, a well-known psychiatrist, author of many books, including one you probably all heard about, The Body Keeps the Score. Bessel, you have dedicated your life to this issue of understanding and explaining the link between violence in childhood and outcomes later in life. The room is full of senior delegates from countries and agencies from around the world. From your decades of experience, if you were in charge of achieving this SDG target to end violence against children, what would you advise? What should we all prioritize to end violence against children by 2030?
Thank you. Well, I have to give a tiny little preamble to illustrate how complex this world is. It is ironic to me to be at this conference in Bogota 2 days after the Americans elected a convicted rapist to be president. A man who has assaulted his own children. And it tells us something about what a very complex problem this is, because this was a known entity and yet people still voted for that. It is very hard to really abolish all this. And it would be easier if the policymakers would understand how child abuse is the most expensive public health issue, at least in the US. That it is more expensive than cancer or heart disease. The impact, we'd like to celebrate survivors here, but in fact, child abuse has a profound effect on the maturation of the mind and the brain. I wish I could show you a little bit more about it. It really interferes with people being able to learn. It interferes with being able to modulate their emotions. It interferes with people being impulsive, aggressive, and lost in space. Many people who are victims of child abuse have a very hard time learning. And so they really undermine the power of your task force. It is an unbelievably expensive issue, and the Centers for Disease Control calculated that if we could get rid of child abuse, most depression would disappear, 3/4 of drug abuse would disappear, the majority of alcoholism would disappear, and the majority of domestic violence. So the root is indeed in the violence against children. But it's an intergenerational issue. It is parents and communities, many communities, including my own grandparents, let's say, thought it was very important to hit your kids. And that was normal. And 2 generations later, it's no longer normal. But in many parts of the world, people think, if I want to raise moral children, I have to hit them. And so even to convince people that hitting your kids is not good for them, is going to be a complex issue. And the only way that I know we can do that is by talking with parents and caregivers about their own experience with violence, because the violence gets transmitted from generation to generation, and until, as a parent, you become aware of the damage that has been done to you by being hit and ignored and molested, you will continue to do it to the next generation. So it is all about the cycle of abuse and how do we stop that. A very important part is community. It's very clear that as long as people raise their children in a community, they can balance each other out. If you move more and more into the nuclear family, the likelihood that people actually will abuse their kids increases very dramatically. So from a policy point of view, anything that helps people to communally raise their children. I used to have a sticker on my car that said, insanity is hereditary, you get it from your kids. Raising children is very difficult. You need to be a very saintly person to put up with your kids' temper tantrums and then not wanting to do things, etc. You need to be a very mature person. And so how do we help parents to raise their children? The economist John Hackman won the Nobel Prize in the year 2000 that showed that for every dollar that the society invests in helping parents taking care of their children, in the long term, society harvests $7 in benefits in terms of people not getting sick, people being able to work, people not committing crimes, people not going to prison, etc., etc. So the community becomes very important, and then we talk about evidence-based. The bad news is, and I have to really disagree with you, we don't know everything about how to treat it, and in fact, academic institutions, by and large, do not address this issue. What's been impressive to me and other members of my research foundation is that we meet amazing programs all over the world. And what we need to do is to identify programs that we really think do a fantastic job, including one that people visited in Bogota yesterday, and see what are these people doing. And then to evaluate whether these programs that look very good actually have the sort of results that we hope it will have. And so that from one culture to another, we can export what we do. I learned a lot about trauma therapy from Bishop Tutu. I was involved in the Truth Commission in South Africa, and Tutu, I went out with him to see what he was doing. He was dancing with people, praying with people, singing with people. In Boston, you don't sing and dance and pray with people when you deal with domestic violence, but he did. And so we need to learn from each other. And so that's really my hope. My hope is that in every classroom in the world from now on, people will teach the 4 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, and self-regulation, and that from K to 12, every child learns how their bodies work, how their minds work, and has laboratories in experiencing what makes them feel safe and empowered and alert. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bessel, for stressing life skills, as well as for reminding us of the return on investment on parenting programs, $7 for every dollar invested. Remember that. We've heard from government, civil society, experts. In my view, we don't speak enough about the role of the private sector, so I'm very happy to have Mr. Sean Litton from the Tech Coalition with us. Sean, the perception is that the private sector is part of the problem of online violence, but can also be part of the solution. And I know the Tech Coalition aims to make positive contributions, so it would be great to hear more about the vision for that.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Krug. Thank you. I serve as President and CEO of the Tech Coalition, which is an alliance of over 45 global tech firms that have come together for the sole purpose of combating online child sexual exploitation and abuse. To give you a sense of our members, we have over half the world's population on our platforms. So child sexual abuse is not a new issue. It's a deeply rooted societal problem that transcends borders, regions, cultures. It occurs in public and private institutions, religious communities, education, sporting, and even in the home, wherever children are present. And this includes the internet, and that's why I'm here today. The last decade has seen a massive rise in the level of images and video depicting child sexual abuse online. In industry, we call this material child sexual abuse material, or CSAM. But every image of abuse shared or viewed re-victimizes the child involved. Leading companies such as Microsoft, Meta, and Google have all developed powerful tools to detect, report, block this type of material, and remove it. They provide these tools free of charge to other companies across borders, across platforms. Last year alone, the tech industry sent over 35.9 million reports of suspected CSAM to relevant authorities. In addition to the distribution of this abusive imagery, predators also actively seek to exploit the power of the internet to access and manipulate children for purposes of sexually abusing them online or facilitating offline abuse, contact abuse. These interconnected online threats all have one key challenge in common. They transcend borders, platforms, and legal jurisdictions. Imagine a child here in Colombia using their smartphone to chat with someone they think is a friend or a peer, perhaps on a social media platform. But in fact, that person could be sitting in a different country, on a different continent, grooming the child to move them to yet another platform for a private conversation. On this new platform, having won the child's confidence, that person convinces the child to share intimate images of themselves. Now, these images, once captured, may be stored on yet another platform and shared with offenders all around the world. This scenario is extraordinarily challenging for industry, for their protection regimes, because no single company has the full picture of the child's experience across all the different platforms. This is why we created Lantern. Lantern is a first of its kind cross-platform signal sharing initiative dedicated to child protection. Lantern allows companies to share information about conduct, users, and behavior that violates their policies against child sexual abuse with other companies. Prior to Lantern, each company acted in an independent silo. There was no consistent mechanism for companies to share information with one another about threats to child safety, and this allowed predators to move from platform to platform and avoid detection. Today, with 25 companies on board, including Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Snap, we're seeing real impact. Just in the last year, over 32,000 accounts have been actioned because of signals shared in Lantern. We all want an internet where every child can explore, learn, and connect online, free from exploitation and abuse. This is not just a moral imperative, it is a strategic necessity. If we fail to act, children will be left to navigate the digital world alone, unprotected, and vulnerable. Each of us has a role to play. Industry must continue to invest in safety by design, deliver age-appropriate experiences, develop and implement privacy-preserving detection technology, and actively engage in the broader collaboration necessary to keep their platforms safe. Governments must align and harmonize their regulations across borders, invest in services for potential offenders so that they never offend, and properly resource law enforcement so that they can respond to the thousands of reports they receive every day. And finally, we must all work together to empower children with digital literacy and citizenship skills, equipping them to take full advantage of the power of the internet. Now is the time to put children at the center of everything we do. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this important conversation. I look forward to collaborating and learning from you over the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Sean. Turning now to another setting that has rightly been in the news as well: child sexual abuse, intimidation, and bullying in sports. The International Olympic Committee has taken it upon itself to respond to this situation, and I'm delighted to have Laura Chinchilla with us, an IOC committee member and a former head of state of Costa Rica. Laura, could you please tell us a bit more about the IOC's plans to end violence against children in sports?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is a great pleasure for me to be part of this panel on behalf of the International Olympic Committee. As we all know, millions of children around the world participate in sports on a daily basis. However, sport doesn't exist in a vacuum. Unlike all sectors, violence also occurs in sport. Over the last 20 years, the IOC has invested heavily in research, capacity building, prevention, and response measures, guided by survivors and athletes' voices. Our objective is not only to protect children in sport, but also use sport to prevent violence against children in their communities. Apart from our Child's Right framework, our Safe Sport Regional Hub initiative is a cornerstone of this effort. With a commitment of United States $10 million over 4 years, we have started the process of establishing regional hubs in Southern Africa and the Pacific Islands to facilitate access to care and guidance and to support localized prevention. These hubs are not just funding initiatives, they are platforms for collaboration with local governments, civil society, and communities. The goal is to develop local safeguarding frameworks, training, and pathways for recourse and remedy. The hubs will focus on local systems, services, and expertise, tapping into the strengths of each region and building local capacity through training and development, in alignment with existing safeguarding initiatives. Crucially, this will be centered around sport participants' needs and driven by local experts who best understand their communities, because we know that to be effective, This support must be culturally and contextually appropriate. So today, I invite you as leaders and representatives of your regions, governments, and institutions to partner with us in this journey. We want to provide you with additional solutions to address violence against children. The hubs work in parallel with our Olympism 365 strategy, which harnesses the values of sport to build a safe and inclusive society. Using the sport as a force for good, including addressing violence against children through sports-based programs in the schools, sports clubs, and communities. I welcome each of you to join and discuss with us here in Bogota how sports can be a part of your country's solution to ending violence against children everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks to the IOC for taking on this very important issue. Before we moved on stage, I told Laura she's a friend of mine. We went on holidays together, but she doesn't know it. In fact, when I went on holiday with my family to Costa Rica a few years ago, her name was all over the country because it was election campaign and she was then elected for president. So at the end of the holiday, Laura Chinchilla was a good friend of the family because she was everywhere with us on holiday. So it's nice to finally meet you. All right, turning now to International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Society, who plays a significant role in child protection, particularly in disaster contexts where violence is often exacerbated. We cannot talk about eliminating violence against children without also talking about addressing violence in humanitarian settings. So we have with us Natia Lolatse, Vice President of the IFRC. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Etienne. Thank you for inviting us. The IFRC network of 191 Red Cross, Red Crescent societies and 16 million volunteers work to protect children around the world in humanitarian settings like disasters, conflicts, and health crises. We see that many of these are children emergencies, with 30, 40, 50, and more % being affected are children. Protecting children in humanitarian and displacement setting is both moral obligation and an investment in the future. Essential elements are already reflected in the excellent minimum standards on child protection in humanitarian action. As such, I will focus on two key actions we feel as IFRC need more attention and investment in humanitarian settings. First, we need to make schools places of safety. Our networks work with thousands of schools before, during, and after disasters. After the disasters, schools can be places where the hurt continues instead of a place of safety and healing. To improve this, as an IFRC network of Red Cross and Red Crescent societies, we aim to scale up work with schools as part of disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. We are pledging at this conference to do so, specifically by creating safeguards for children, like Red Cross societies in Liberia and Panama that support child safeguarding systems, training teachers and other education personnel on psychological first aid disasters, and identifying and referring at-risk children to appropriate protection services. Second, responding effectively to violence by working with schools and NGOs to ensure, even in humanitarian crises, they are effective, accessible, safe, and child survivor-focused referral pathways for children experiencing violence, like Red Cross and Red Crescent societies do in Yemen and Gambia. Changing norms and values for gender equality and non-violence. For example, in conflict-affected locations, the Colombian Red Cross, which is present today here, delivers evidence-based education to promote safe interpersonal relationships, prevent sexual and gender-based violence, and promote peace. It reinforces this through the actions to prevent child recruitment, restoring family links for separated children, educated children on demining and mental health of migrant children, promoting international humanitarian law to protect schools from attack. And finally, act faster and sooner through early warning, including anticipatory action. At present, child protection is added after the cyclone. Flood or heat wave has already had its impact. With this in mind, taking early action, starting right when we forecast a disaster, is an emerging tool for us all. However, right now, child protection is mostly invisible in early warning actions. This is good work happening, like from the Red Cross societies in Nepal, Uruguay, Lesotho, and Zimbabwe, which include child protection within early warnings, so the risk is reduced for children missing schools or becoming separated, being married or forced into labor. Now is the time for us to move from islands of good practice and scale up early warning actions, so child protection is built in a reflex into the anticipatory actions in all locations. Within the IFRC, we are working with some of you to develop a support package on child protection and education in anticipatory action with a focus on climate disasters. An effort we hope can allow us to take a unified approach. So we welcome anyone interested to join this effort. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Nadia. And finally, I'd like to turn to Kate Hampton. Kate, as CEO of the Child Investment Fund Foundation, you have your fingers on many, many different agendas and have been moving along or moving forward many different aspects that relate to children. Based on your experience, what will it take to open the eyes of donors to make violence against children a priority for them?
Thanks, Etienne, and a huge thanks to the co-hosts and very importantly to their teams who have pulled this conference together. So to talk about the money now, we are in a situation of immense fiscal stress around the world. 3 billion people are living in countries that spend more on debt servicing than they do on health or education. As a consequence, I find it extraordinarily uplifting that so many low and middle income countries have come to this conference and made bold commitments to protect children. We need an unassailable business case to make finance ministers and heads of state want to invest in preventing violence against children. We've heard parts of it from Bezel, we've heard parts of it from Brianna. This is an incredibly dangerous problem, but it is also one that is eminently solvable. And we've heard so much from survivors here. And actually, the horrendous, grotesque, to use the word of the Colombian president, grotesque prevalence of this issue is also something that we can turn into an asset, because everybody knows, loves, or has experienced a person that has been abused in some way, everybody. And so we can build a whole of society approach, including online, that moves beyond individual projects and organizations to an ecosystem approach, something that achieves the scale that's required. And we're on the cusp of a movement now. This conference is the first expression of that can bring together the evidence and the data and can shine a light on many of these examples that have been so positive. That is the business case. We have to show that there is a return on investment and that it is achievable and it deserves the attention of everyone. So I just want to turn quickly to the role of philanthropy. I'm an environmentalist, and I don't know if all of you know about forest ecology, but under every forest floor is what's called mycelium, which is the fungal networks that direct resources and water. You only see the trees, but under the ground there's a lot going on. I see philanthropy as the mycelium. I see you all as the trees, and especially the survivors and the young people. Philanthropy needs to come together and help create the kinds of resource flows that will enable this movement to emerge strong, powerful, and compelling. CIF, the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, today we're making a commitment of $125 million that we intend to spend in the next few years. But this is not a gift, this is an investment. This is an investment in partnership with all of you. This is an investment in sharing and learning. This is an investment in survivor voices. It's an investment in children and youth stepping up. It's an investment in government allies, business allies, and religious leaders. It must be an investment in leadership, and it must be an investment in accountability. Because to echo the words of the Special Representative and Dr. Tedros, this is only the beginning. And as Brianna said, we can break the intergenerational cycle, but we must do it in this generation. We don't want hundreds more years of this. So come together, mobilize resources, because with success and momentum and stories and relationships, that is how we mobilize the funds we need to break the cycle of violence in this generation.
Thank you so much, Kate. Kate spoke fast because she wants us to get back on track, and I thank you for that. But she just announced $125 million for violence against children. This might be the single biggest donation ever in one go for violence against children. I think it deserves a standing ovation.
I mean, Etienne, to be honest, the people who deserve a standing ovation are the survivors and the young people who've been brave enough to bring their stories and their expertise. And I hope we can play a very small part in honoring their request that this doesn't happen to the kids that come behind them.
Etienne, may I have 1 minute? I would like to build on what Kate mentioned and to just, it's my complete pleasure to announce that at this ministerial conference, we are launching the first ever global youth-led movement to end violence against children. And so you will know more about this over the course of the next few days and more at the closing remarks. But just know that this is happening, youth power is happening, and we are ready to do this. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to finish on this high note. I want to thank our speakers and apologize. We inherited 2 hours delay. I think we might have gained back 15 minutes or so. So everybody made an effort to be as succinct as possible. We could have continued for another hour, I'm sure, but thanks for that. We've heard a lot, lots of activities, including in low and middle income countries, effectiveness of interventions, what's mentioned a number of times, a strong plea for involving youth, as well as at the end also the launch of a new youth movement. Topic-specific commitments on sports, online, and of course, 2 very important financial contributions which are going to help us advance the field. So thanks to all our speakers, thanks very much. We're going to now break for lunch, but before we do that, we have a message from some fellow champions for children who wanted to be here. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have worked tirelessly to protect children and support their parents in all settings, particularly online. They have sent us a very short video message. So we're going to watch the video and then we break for lunch.
Good morning and thank you to both the Colombian and Swedish governments, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the Special Representative of the Secretary General on Ending Violence Against Children for bringing us all together today. The first ever ministerial conference on ending violence against children comes at a crucial time and, quite frankly, should not be required. But here we are. We are at a crossroads where the urgency to reassess and redefine our approach to protecting children has become increasingly evident. While the necessity has always been apparent, it is now time to translate that awareness into meaningful action. So we thank you all for your attention to this critical issue.
My husband and I recognize today's reality is marked by greater connectivity and advanced technology, which of course has many positives, but which also compels us to better understand how digital violence against children is manifesting itself in this age. And at the Archwell Foundation, we engage with young people, families, and experts worldwide, learning how every aspect of a child's life, from their livelihood to their physical and mental well-being, now operate within an online economy that has the power to both shape and misshape our connections.
While the online world can help develop strategies to protect children from violence, it also introduces new risks. such as from individuals who exploit gaps in outdated legal systems, which often don't account for today's digital realities. We know that supporting parents is essential in reducing digital violence against children. That's why earlier this year, we launched the Parents Network, a support network for families dealing with online harm. Through trauma-informed practices, we help parents come together to forge strong bonds, offering healing support through community with the ultimate goal of prioritizing safety at the source.
Parents from the Parents Network are sharing their personal stories about their families' experiences with you all this week. We hope their voices and message will reaffirm this room's commitment to taking a clear-eyed approach to the reality of violence targeting children in this digital age. The stories have helped us to understand that as we better equip parents and caregivers and work to establish norms around the use of and access to technology as they relate to preventing violence, we must also commit to establishing standards that prioritize children's safety.
Young people are calling for help. Families are desperately seeking support. They are urging us to leverage the resources in this room to confront the new reality our youth are facing. We look forward to the actions and outcomes of the discussions that will take place here in Colombia, and are grateful for the leadership, expertise, and testimonies that will come together in this room to address all forms of violence targeting the most vulnerable in our world.
Thank you again for your commitment to preventing violence against children, both offline and online. Together, we can harness this moment to drive lasting change. Thank you.
So thanks to the Duke and the Duchess, thanks to our speakers again. We're going to break, and I suggest we come back at 2:15 to have the fireside chat that we were supposed to have before the break, and then move on with the first government pledging session. Thanks to all.